W5FC. Meeting on the air first and third Sunday, 7 p.m., W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KFI-PDS. My name is Billye, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the # break in your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org, look for tonight's announcement, and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we will continue to do that too, over air and on Echolink. All amateurs or operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, recent astronomical discoveries, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. We currently have the following people checked in via w5fc.org. KE5ICX, Tom in Corpus Christi, All-Star Link. NT5TM, Tony in Bird City, Over Air Radio. K5MCD, Cody in Dallas, Over Air Radio. WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas, on Echolink. N5LIG, Dale in Dallas, on Echolink. KF5JHA, Bob the Cat and Chaz, A Planet with Animals on multiple modes. AA5AH, Robert in Richardson, Over Air Radio. N5BB, Bill in Irving, Over Air Radio. And KI5PGM, Travis and McKinney, Over Air Radio. Now let's start with voice check-ins, starting with short time. Please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from this evening. I'm not hearing any short time, so let's go ahead and move to general check-ins. So same request for general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay, and Mesquite. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Okay, the net recognizes November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay and Mesquite, and KF5ZBL, Bill and Farmers Branch. Do we have any other general check-ins?
This is Whiskey Bravo 4 Mike Foxtrot India WV4 MFI Ted Dallas Lowbauer.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, northeast Dallas.
Okay, let me get those check-ins. WB4, MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power, and W5GUS, Gus, in far northeast Dallas. Do we have any other general check-ins? If so, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. I'm not hearing any other general check-ins. If the folks over on Echolink, I've already got you checked in, but if anybody on Echolink wants to do a verbal check-in from Echolink, I'll give you some extra time. So for Echolink check-ins at this time. Thanks, Echolinkers. I've got y'all checked in. Now let's do an open round. Anyone who'd like to check in any mode can do so now. Just give me your call sign name, where you're transmitting from, check-ins, any mode.
This is Alpha India 5, Zulu Charlie, Jim in Carrollton.
Okay, I've got Alpha India 5, Zulu Charlie, Jim in Carrollton. And I also see a couple more check-ins over from the website check-in. We've got AB5DM, Dustin in Dallas, over-air radio, and NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth, over-air radio. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to start our program. Let's get started with general check-ins. Announcements, do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NT5TM, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, and thank you, Billy. Please don't forget to make your last-minute sign-up for Turkey Trot or the Dallas Marathon. Please see the details in the top pinned post at W5FC.org. Particularly if you think you signed up for Turkey Trot like I did, but maybe I goofed, and you haven't received an email from Travis, please go sign up at W5FC.org. Some of us make mistakes, skip things, have little gaps in our routine. Take care of it. Don't let it go too late. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on Quatermass 2 from 1957. Yeah, that's how it's pronounced. The movie is available in both low-res false color with orange teeth and green asphalt and high-res black and white for free on YouTube. And this Monday, I'll be at least as tired as I am today, but it'll be better because it'll be time for GeekNet, your home for all things unexpected and odd and weird on the W5FC repeater at 7 p.m. local time. Thank you for your support and thank you for listening. NT5TM.
Great. Thank you very much, Tony. Some other announcements. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, you can check into the National AMSAT net, learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. 2 local nets are available in Dallas. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others checked in. AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Tuesdays, Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that night. The Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts a number of nets on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Check the W5FC.org website. This coming Monday is the GeekNet, Geek Beyond Ham Radio. This Monday, Geek Out Beyond Ham Radio. We expand topics to include computers, science, space, news of the weird, and much more. No topic is off limits, just as long as it's geeky. Tony NT5TM is net control. This week is a surprise net. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. Saturdays are the night of nets, where we keep up the airwaves buzzing until midnight. Here's the lineup. TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m., Q&A on all things ham radio related. There's also a swap meet, Rookie's Corner, news and information, and ham radio events and contests, alternating net controls each week. And from 9 to 10:30 p.m., Skynet. Astronomy, space, and space exploration are the topics. Also news and information, satellite passages, and the Constellation of the week. And as Tony mentioned, there's the Afterglow movie net from 10:30 to midnight. Will it be a hit or the dreaded miss? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You make the call. More in a moment. First and third Sundays, Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. What's going on in your ham world? Tell us. Also learn about the club that maintains this popular repeater, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Club news and information, events, activities, including club meetings, lecture and lab, public service events, contests, and just general discussion. Everyone can check into this net. And on Mondays at 7 p.m., we have several nets. First week is Ham Fixin's Net, which is a cooking net. Bring your favorite new recipes, cooking tips, or techniques. We even wouldn't mind a good restaurant review or two. Just make sure you eat something before the net because you'll get hungry. Randy KU5JIT is net control. The second Monday is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. And the third Monday is Ham Fixin's Net, Second Helping. The ARRL Net National Traffic System Training Net is every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Learn how message traffic is handled on this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in, as this is a training net. The NTS also conducts an evening net on the Irving Whiskey Alpha 5 Charlie Kilo Foxtrot repeater, 146.72 megahertz at 9:30 p.m. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as promised, more information on tonight's Afterglow info. So at this time, I'm going to turn the net over to Tom, KU5ICX, to give us tonight's Afterglow info from KF5PDS.
Well, thank you, Billy. This is KE5ICX down in Corpus Christi. Here's tonight's Afterglow info. Write this down because it's highly accurate. Quatermass had seen it all. alien invaders that looked like the devil, nefarious eggs and rocks that expelled knockout gas, and of course his encounter with the most formidable opponent of his career, Wernher von Braun. Quatermass had challenged von Braun to a hypersonic rocket race to the moon. Spoiler alert, von Braun won. However, today presented a new challenge. He'd been snooping around a British movie studio surveying the latest project of puppet master Gary Anderson, over on stage 6, and instantly recognized inside a set populated by cheesy styrofoam domes. Obviously, they were an imitation of his own cheap styrofoam domes, moon-based cheap styrofoam domes, a project he'd been working on for years. Quatermass had a plan, and the knockout gas he'd taken from an alien egg would come in handy when taking Anderson prisoner and stopping production of the dreaded Space 1999, a series von Braun had also backed after his own lunar success. Join us for the second most famous British science fiction series turned into a series of movies, this one, Quatermass 2. Not to be confused with Quatermass 1, or the final Quatermass, or X-Quatermass, or something. I don't know. There's a lot of these floating around. This one from 1957, tonight at 10:30 p.m. p.m., not a.m., p.m. Back to you, Billy, KE5, ICX.
Great, thank you very much, Tom. And you can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, W5FC.org. Let me check our website check-in. Well, currently everybody is checked in. So if you're on air and have not checked in yet, you can go to the website, W5FC.org, click on the hot link, and check into the net. I'll now take additional voice check-ins. If you have not checked in yet to this evening's net, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Bravo 5, Zulu Charlie Romeo, Tim from Southlake. Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot Kilo Golf, Cecil in Mesquite.
Okay, I've got Kilo Bravo 5, Zulu Charlie Romeo, Tim in Southlake, and Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot Kilo Golf, Cecil in Mesquite. Are there any other check-ins for the net tonight? If so, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, I don't hear any, so let's go ahead and move on to Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening, everyone. This is KF5JHA Chaz. On November the 21st, that was last night, was the last Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting for the year. The meeting was held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. There was also a Zoom component for members. The featured speaker was the Astrophotography Special Interest Group. There was also the annual swap meet. A few things were exchanged between members and cash as well. Now, TASS hosts a Saturday night observing session. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. Currently, on the fourth Saturday of the month, that's tonight, there are no scheduled stargazing stations. You can check the TASS website, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing stations. This is Chaz, KF5JJ. I'm laughing because I've got a cat that's only 2 feet away from the computer. It looks like he's about ready to pounce on it. Back to you, Billy.
Great. Thank you very much, Chaz. Bob, be careful. Don't step on the keyboard. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Bill, N5BB. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you very much, Billy. This is N5BB. I happen to be the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. Our last meeting was on Sunday, November the 9th. The presentation was by Zonong Zhu on When the Sun Gets Angry, Understanding Space Weather in Low Earth Orbit. Associate Professor Chu works in the new Center for Space Physics and Data Science in the Department of Physics at the University of Texas at Arlington. Since we are in the midst of solar X-ray flares and CME events, this is an appropriate time to be discussing space weather. On the last Friday evening of each month at 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter usually sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. The Friday, November 28th Space Rendezvous event will be held at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. Yes, this is this coming Friday, the evening after Thanksgiving Day. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets every month at 3:30 p.m. on the second Saturday afternoon of the month. The second Sunday afternoon of the month. I'll get it right in a moment. Our next chapter meeting will be a holiday party at my house in Irving on Sunday, December the 14th. We'll be meeting at 2 o'clock for food, and we'll start our business meeting at 4 p.m. If you have any questions about the National Space Society or want to attend our holiday party, please contact me, Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at my QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. That's all I've got. Back to net. This is N5BB. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Bill. This is KF5PDS, Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Next up is recent astronomical discoveries. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thanks, Billy. This is WB5OZL. Tonight's article is entitled Dark Matter Acts Surprisingly Normal in a New Cosmic Test. Does dark matter behave according to the same physical rules that apply to ordinary matter? The question remains one of the major puzzles in modern cosmology, since this invisible form of matter, which neither emits nor reflects any light, is still hypothetical and extremely difficult to study directly. Researchers from the University of Geneva and collaborating institutions aimed to see whether dark matter follows familiar behavior on the larger scales or whether other forces might influence it. Their study, published in Nature Communications, indicates that dark matter appears to act much like ordinary matter, although they cannot yet rule out the possibility of an additional previously unknown interaction. Because dark matter is thought to be 5 times more common than ordinary matter, even a small new insight helps clarify its role in shaping the universe. Ordinary matter is affected by 4 known fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak forces within atoms. The question is whether dark matter responds to the same set of forces. While dark matter is invisible and difficult to detect, it may still follow these familiar laws or possibly be influenced by a 5th force that scientists have not yet identified. To explore the possibility, the UNIGE-led team examined whether dark matter sinks into gravitational wells the way ordinary matter does on cosmic scales. Massive objects distort the structure of space, forming these wells. Ordinary matter, planets, stars, and galaxies, falls into them according to established physical principles that include Einstein's general relativity and Euler's equations. The team wanted to know whether dark matter behaves in the same unpredictable way. To answer this question, we compared the velocities of galaxies across the universe with the depth of gravitational wells, explains Camille Bonvin, Associate Professor of the Department of Theoretical Physics at UNIGE's Faculty of Science and co-author of the study. If dark matter is not subject to a 5th force, then galaxies, which are made up of dark matter, will fall into these wells like ordinary matter, governed solely by gravity. On the other hand, if a 5th force acts on dark matter, it will influence the motion of galaxies, which would then fall into the wells differently. By comparing the depth of the wells with the galaxy's velocities, we can therefore test for the presence of such a force. I'm going to reset. Using this method on modern cosmological data, the researchers found that dark matter moves into gravitational wells in the same manner as ordinary matter, meaning that it is consistent with Euler's equations. At this stage, however, these conclusions do not yet rule out the presence of an unknown force, but if such a 5th force exists, it cannot exceed 7% of the strength of gravity. Otherwise, it would already have appeared in our analyses, says Natasha Grimm, first author of the study and former postdoctoral researcher at the Department of Theoretical Physics at UNIGE's Faculty of Science, who has recently joined the Institute of Cosmology and Gravitation at the University of Portsmouth. These early findings represent an important step in refining our understanding of dark matter. The next key objective is to determine whether a subtle 5th force truly affects it. Upcoming data from the newest experiments, such as LSST and DESI, will be sensitive to forces as weak as 2% of gravity. They should therefore allow us to learn even more about the behavior of dark matter, concludes Isaac Tudor-South, researcher at ICSIC and IEEC, and associate professor of IRAP, Midi-Pyrenees Observatory, University of Toulouse, co-author of the study. Well, that's it. Back to net, WV50ZL.
Great. Thank you very much, Brenda. Next up is discussion topic of the evening. So for tonight's topic, I've chosen the Sentinel-6B mission. And just as a reminder, if you go over to YouTube, There is a DARC Skynet YouTube channel, and you can find tonight's YouTube going on over there. Tom does a great slideshow, and he does one also for Chaz's segments too. So you can have that on and be listening and have it muted and watch the slideshow. So let me go over to the article. This is on science.nasa.gov. This article is entitled NASA SpaceX Launch U.S. European Satellite to Monitor Earth's Oceans. The article is by Jessica Tavo and was published on November 17th. About the size of a full-size pickup truck, a newly launched satellite by NASA and its partners will provide ocean and atmospheric information to improve hurricane forecasts, help protect infrastructure, and benefit commercial activities such as shipping. The Sentinel-6B satellite lifted off aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in Central California at 9:21 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on November 16th. Contact between the satellite and a ground station in northern Canada occurred about an hour and 30 minutes later at 10:54 p.m. All systems are functioning normally. Understanding tidal patterns down to the inch is critical in protecting how we use our oceans every day on Earth, said Nikki Fox, Associate Administrator, Science Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters in Washington. Sentinel-6B will build upon the legacy of Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich by making sea level measurements that improve forecasts used by communities, businesses, and operations across the country. It also will support a safer reentry for our astronauts returning home, including crew from Artemis moon missions. Sea levels vary from place to place, and the satellite will provide accurate measurements at both local and global scales, all from hundreds of miles above in low Earth orbit. Those observations form the basis for U.S. flood predictions, which are crucial for safeguarding coastal infrastructure, real estate, energy storage sites, and other coastal assets. Sentinel-6B will take over for Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich, which launched in 2020 and later became the official reference satellite for global sea level measurements, providing sea surface height measurements against which those from other satellites are compared for accuracy. The satellite comes from a collaboration between multiple partners, including NASA, ESA, the European Space Agency, the European Organization for the Exploitation of Meteorological Satellites, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. It is also part of the European Union's family of Copernicus missions. Collaboration between partners is key to a mission such as Sentinel-6, and my thanks go to everyone involved in developing, launching, and operating this exceptional satellite, which follows in the footsteps of the first Sentinel-6, Michael Freilich, said Simonetta Celli, Director, ESA's Earth Observation Programs. This achievement demonstrates what can be accomplished when international agencies and industries work together toward a shared goal. Sentinel-6B will ensure we continue to collect the high-precision data needed to understand our changing climate, safeguard our oceans, and support decisions that protect coastal communities around the world. The two satellites make up the Copernicus Sentinel-6 JASON CS, or Continuity of Service mission, the latest in a series of ocean-observing radar altimetry missions that have monitored Earth's changing seas since the early 1990s. As with its predecessor, Sentinel-6B satellite will also provide key information about wind speeds, wave heights, atmospheric pressure, and humidity. Moreover, because water expands as its temperature increases, researchers can tell which parts of the ocean are warmer than others based on where the sea surface height is greater. Combined with data from other instruments, that knowledge can help in forecasting marine weather, including the development of hurricanes, which intensify with warmer water. Also, because large currents are taller than surrounding waters due to their higher temperatures, sea surface measurements can shed light on interactions between the Gulf Stream, for example, and nearby waves. Where they meet, seas can become rougher, presenting a hazard to even the largest ships. Sentinel-6B is a testament to the value of NASA's partnership missions to put actionable satellite information and science into the hands of decision makers on the ground, said Karen St. Germain, Director of NASA's Earth Science Division at the agency's headquarters. Sentinel-6B will collect ocean surface observations that will inform decisions critical to coastal communities, commercial shipping and fishing, national defense, and emergency preparedness and response. This is what NASA does, puts advanced technology and science into action for the benefit of the nation. When Sentinel-6B reaches its operating elevation, the satellite will fly about 30 seconds behind Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich, which carries identical science instruments. Once the mission finishes cross-calibrating the data collected by the two, Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich will move into a different orbit, and Sentinel-6B will take over the role of official reference satellite, orbiting Earth about 13 times a day at 830 miles above the surface. Sentinel-6B demonstrates the versatile Earth science applications made possible by expertly engineered space-based technology. The satellite's powerful suite of instruments will measure about 90% of Earth's oceans down to fractions of an inch, continuing to add to a vital data set that America and a growing global community depend on, said Dave Gallagher, Director, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, in Southern California. Copernicus Sentinel-6 JASON CS is a collaboration between ESA, the European Union, EUMETSAT, NASA, and NOAA. French space agency CNES contributed technical support. Copernicus, which includes the Sentinel missions, is the European Union's Earth observation program led by the European Commission. A division of Caltech in Pasadena, JPL contributed 3 science experiments for each Sentinel-6 satellite: the Advanced Microwave Radiometer, the Global Navigation Satellite System, Radio Occultation, and the Laser Retroreflector Array. NASA is also contributing launch services, ground systems supporting operation of the NASA science instruments, the science data processors for 2 of these instruments, and support for the U.S. members of the International Ocean Surface Topography Science Team and Sentinel-6 science teams. To learn more about Sentinel-6B, visit science.nasa.gov/mission/Sentinel-6B. So there's information about the Sentinel-6B mission. Does anyone have any questions or comments for tonight's presentation? If so, please come now with your call sign. All right, not hearing anything. This is KFI PDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is What's Up. So this time I will return the net to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours from KFI PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet What Is Up because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Just a word of advertisement. I've been volunteering at the Turkey Trot for quite some time, and it's a lot of fun. I only have a few thousand of my close friends that show up and do some running. They burn off the turkey dinner that they'll have later on that day. Yeah. Oh, that was slide number 2. Billy was talking about the video version of Skynet. Go to W5FC.org to get the video version. It's on YouTube. Yeah, there you go. Slide Master, slide number 3. And our slide master is Tom. Thank you very much, Tom. Here's an image of Comet Swan that I took with my Seastar S50 astronomical camera on November the 7th. I did some imaging on the eastern shore of the peninsula of Lake Ray Hubbard that night. I did not get an image of Comet Lemon that night, but, slide master, slide number 4, here's an image of Comet Lemon that I took on Tuesday, November the 11th. Yes, both got Comet Swan and Comet Lemon to be found yet in the evening sky, and I found both of them using the astronomical equipment that I've talked about. So let me see. We had some aurora. I talked about that last week, but I don't have any pictures for that because I already showed those last week. All right, let's go on to slide master, slide number 5, please. We have talked about the predicted nova of the star T Coronaborealis that could erupt at any time. Now, it will go nova, not supernova. A nova can be reoccurring on a regular or maybe irregular basis. The current brightness of T Coronaborealis is around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. T Coronaborealis was supposed to go nova more than a year ago by some predictions. One recent prediction was for T Coronaborealis to go nova on November the 10th. Well, that did not happen. So another prediction is June 25th of 2026. We don't know when it's going to happen, but that's the next prediction. When it does go nova, T Coronaborealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes from my very light polluted location here in Mesquite, Texas. Slide master, slide number 6, please. This image of the sun was taken from spaceweather.com on November the 19th. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that all you need to use is your solar eclipse glasses to see them. The sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. We're not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. I have some insider information that says unless there's something really interesting going on beyond this, next week's Net Control Station's feature topic is going to be about the solar cycle. Slide master, slide number 7. New moon was just a couple of days ago, so you might have been able to see a crescent moon in the evening sky. So November the 20th was new moon. The current phase of the moon is a waxing crescent. The first quarter moon is on November the 28th. On December the 4th, the moon will be a perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 356,962 kilometers. Also on December the 4th is full moon. December the 11th is the third quarter phase of the moon. On December the 17th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,322 kilometers. Slide master, slide number 8. And this is my marathon of slide selections here over the next few minutes. Slide 8 is on November the 29th. The planets Venus and Mercury are in conjunction in the southeastern morning sky. You might need a pair of binoculars to pull out Mercury out of the twilight glow. Slide master, slide number 9. On December the 1st, Vesta, the asteroid, is in conjunction with a star cluster M22. That's in the constellation of Sagittarius, and that's in the southwestern evening sky. Again, that could be in twilight, so you might not be able to see the star cluster M22 unless you have a pair of binoculars. Slide master, slide number 10. On December the 3rd, in the evening sky, the moon will occult, or in other words, will block our view of the Pleiades star cluster. You probably won't see the Pleiades star cluster with just your 2 eyes because it's around full moon. I would suggest you grab a pair of binoculars and observe this event. It will take place over a period of a few hours, beginning just after twilight. It'll be worth the time. If it's clear, go out there and take a look. It won't take much to do, just binoculars. Slide master, slide number 11. In the early morning sky of December the 7th, there's a conjunction of the moon, the planets Jupiter, and the bright star Pollux. A conjunction is a gathering of 2 or more objects close to each other in the sky. Slide master, slide number 12. on the night of December the 8th and 9th, there's going to be a peak of 2 minor meteor showers, the Nostrids and the Sigma Hydrads meteor showers. Both will have about a handful of meteors per hour. Most of the time you'll see most of the meteors over the night, just the hour before dawn, because that's the side of the Earth that's running into the debris that's left behind by comets or asteroids. To get detailed information about how to observe meteors and meteor showers, you can go to the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at AMSmeteors.org. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 13. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question, or maybe you need a fill on any of the information I've just given you? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now, what is your call sign if you have a question or need a fill? Well, hearing nothing. So as the moon waned last week, this is slide number 14. So to these words for this segment of Skynet, stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ Chaz, and this is Skynet, transmitting on the W5FC repeater at 146.88 megahertz. Back to our net control. Billye, it's yours.
Great, thanks, Chaz. This is KF5PDS, Billye, your net control, for this session of the DARC Skynet. Everybody's checked in over there on the website check-in, but if you would like to check in over RF before we move on to our next segment, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Not hearing any, so we'll move on to space exploration and space history. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Gus, W5GUS. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Okay, thank you, Billye. W5GUS here with Space Exploration News. We'll start with the Chinese astronauts that are stranded on the Tiangong space station. There are 3 of them. They're aboard the Tiangong space station. They were faced an unexpected predicament as their Shenzhou spacecraft was damaged by orbital debris, rendering it unsafe for their return to Earth. So China is now expediting the launch of a replacement spacecraft to ensure the safe recovery of that crew. This incident highlights the growing challenge of space debris and the critical importance of robust spacecraft design and contingency planning for long-duration missions. The global space community is closely monitoring the situation as China prepares for the rescue mission. All right, and we'll go on to SpaceX here. The launch of the Sentinel-6B satellite last Monday on the 17th that you heard Billye talking about earlier tonight. It not only marked a critical scientific endeavor, but also celebrated a significant achievement for SpaceX, being its SpaceX 500th orbital mission utilizing a flight-proven rocket booster. Just a few days later, on November 20th, a Falcon 9 Starlink mission further underscored SpaceX operational tempo, achieving the 100th launch of the year from Florida's Space Coast. These milestones reflect the rapid pace of launch operations and the increasing reliability of reusable rocket technology, pushing the boundaries of space access to space. Okay, and a little this past week or so, the NASA provided stunning close-up images of the rare interstellar comet 31 Atlas, a unique celestial visitor making a single pass through our solar system. Observations from various NASA missions are collecting invaluable data on this object, which originated from outside our solar system. Studying 31 Atlas offers scientists a rare opportunity to analyze pristine material from another star system, potentially revealing new insight into the formation and composition of exoplanetary environments and interstellar matter. And NASA achieved NASA achieved a crucial step for its upcoming Artemis II mission by successfully stacking the Orion crew module onto the massive Space Launch System, or the SLS rocket. This integration marks a significant preparation for the crewed mission, which aims to send astronauts around the moon, targeted for early 2026, early next year. The completion of this assembly phase brings humanity closer to establishing a sustained human presence on the lunar surface and advancing exploration deeper into space. All right, let's go on to space-related birthdays. First up, November 18th, 1923, Alan Shepard. He was Mercury Redstone 3, Freedom 7, and Apollo 14 astronaut. He was the first American in space, the fifth person to walk on the moon. All right, November 18th also, but in 1929, William Knight, X-15 program. He was a highly decorated test pilot who flew the X-15 to record speeds and altitudes. Okay, next up was Eileen Collins, born on November 19th, 1956. She was on STS-63, STS-84, STS-93, and STS-114. She was the first female space shuttle pilot and first female spacecraft commander. She also did the backward flip of the first shuttle mission after the return to flight started. She was the one that actually did the first backward flip that maneuvered the shuttle belly to the space station, where they could observe very closely the heat shields that were damaged on the previous shuttle that made it crash. So she was the first person to do a backflip like that, which is a lot harder than you'd think, because they're both moving a little differently, and well, anyway. So she was a heck of a good pilot. She was also a test pilot before she became an astronaut. All right, let's move on. November 19th, 1962, Nicole Stout, STS-128, STS-113, and ISS Expedition 2021. She was an American engineer and a NASA astronaut, performed a spacewalk, and was on the last flight of the Space Shuttle Discovery. November 19th, 1964, Nicholas Patrick, STS-116, STS-130, American-born British astronaut, flew on 2 space shuttle missions to the ISS. All right, November 20th, 1968, James Dutton was on the STS-131. He was a NASA astronaut, a pilot on Space Shuttle Discovery. Okay, November 21st, 1933, Henry Hartsfield, STS-4, STS-5, STS-61. He was an astronaut who flew on 3 space shuttle missions and the commander of STS-4. November 22nd, 1930, Owen Garrett, Skylab 3. Wow, that's an early one. Skylab 3, STS-9. He was electrical engineer, first amateur radio operator in space. Wonder what his call sign was. All right, let's move to Gwen Bluford, November 22nd, 1942. STS-8, STS-61 Alpha, STS-39, 39, and STS-53. First African American to travel into space. Okay, and this week in space history, November 16th, Venera 3 and Skylab 4 launched. In 1965, the Soviet Union launched Venera 3, which became the first spacecraft to reach the surface of another planet, which was Venus, although it failed before returning data. In 1973, NASA launched Skylab 4 for an 84-day mission, the third and final crewed mission to the Skylab Orbital Workshop. Mission highlights include extensive scientific research and observations of the Sun, Earth resources, and human adaptation to long-duration spaceflight. November 16th, Arecibo message and Artemis 1 launch. In 1974, the Arecibo radio telescope sent an interstellar radio message designed to communicate basic information about humanity and Earth. It was broadcast from Puerto Rico. The message was broadcast into space a single time via frequency modulated radio, that's FM of course, at a ceremony to mark the remodeling of the Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico on 16 November 1974. The message was aimed at the current location of M13, which is only about 25,000 light years from Earth, because M13 was a large and relatively close collection of stars that was available in the sky at the time and place of the ceremony. So about 25,000 years from then, they should be receiving that. Someone might be receiving that. Okay, and more recently, in 2022, NASA launched Artemis 1, the first uncrewed test flight of the Space Launch System and Orion spacecraft. This mission was a crucial step in NASA's plans to return humans to the moon. In 1967, NASA's Surveyor 6 achieved the first liftoff from another celestial body, which was the moon. After landing safely on November 10th, it briefly lifted off and relocated, demonstrating a technology crucial for future human lunar missions. This successful maneuver provided valuable data for the Apollo program. In 1989, the Cosmic Background Explorer, or COBE, satellite was launched, providing groundbreaking data about the early universe. COBE's observations confirmed the Big Bang Theory and precisely measured the cosmic microwave background radiation. In 1969, Apollo 12 achieved precision landing on the moon near Surveyor 3, marking the first time human explorers examined an unmanned probe sent to another world. And let's see, on that day, Kathleen Shelvala, an American astronaut, began her first space mission aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia STS-87, becoming the first woman of Indian origin to travel into space. On November 20th, 1999, Zarya, Z-A-R-Y-A, Zarya, the first module of the International Space Station, was launched from Russia Cosmodrome, marking the beginning of the orbital outpost construction. This also commemorates the birth of Edwin Hubble in 1889, whose observations vastly expanded our understanding of galaxies and the size of the universe, leading to the discovery of the universe's expansion. That very first piece of the ISS, the Russian piece, is still there. It's the main where everything else is kind of bolted to that. It's still in use. So November 22nd, Space Shuttle Discovery, STS-33, was launched in 1989. A classified mission for the United States Department of Defense, demonstrating the shuttle's versatility for both civilian and military objectives. And with that, that's the end of this episode of Space History. So we will return back to Billye and look forward to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So back to you, Billye, from W5GUF.
Great, thank you very much, Gus. Before we move on to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, let me do a quick check-in round. I don't see anybody else new checked in on the website, but if there's someone out there on frequency that has not yet checked into this evening's net, I'll give you the opportunity. If you'll please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
Great. Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David in St. Paul. Welcome to Skynet. Is there anyone else on frequency that would like to check in? If so, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from.
November 2, Victor India Papa, Ken in Las Colinas.
Okay, November 2, Victor India Papa, Ken in Las Colinas. Got you checked in. Is there anyone else that would like to check into this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. You're not hearing any, so we'll go ahead and move on to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So at this time, I will return the net to Chaz. KF5JHA, the net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billye. Once again, this is Chaz. Good evening. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week is named in honor of Silent B. Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in North Texas throughout the year out of the total of 88 constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is Andromeda, the princess. Now, I've told you about the myth behind Cassiopeia in the past and Andromeda. Cassiopeia is the queen, Cepheus is the king, Andromeda is the princess. Perseus is the hero. Perseus has a flying horse named Pegasus, and Cetus is the sea monster. All of these characters are in the story, and they're all constellations in the sky. This is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. And Slide Master, slide number 16, the jokes of the week. Now, if you're over on Echolink, you can make comments about all the jokes. It's kind of hard to respond over the radio since I'll be hogging the air for the next few moments with the jokes. So here we go. How does the princess? Oh, by the way, the constellation of the week is the theme for the jokes of the week. So here we go. How does the princess screw in a light bulb? Well, she holds the light bulb in the socket and waits for the world to revolve around her. Why didn't the Disney princess Elsa go to the doctor when she got sick? Oh, come on, you had to have watched the movie Frozen. Because the cold didn't ever bother her anymore. Oh, well, okay. Who is the hottest Disney princess? Well, it has to be Cinderella. Get it? Cinderella? Okay, well. My daughter is very angry with me. You see, The Princess Bride is her favorite movie. And I incorrectly quoted The Princess Bride by saying, unbelievable. Oh, it's supposed to be inconceivable, I think, yeah. Why did Princess Leia contract coronavirus on purpose? Because she wanted to woo Han. Oh, come on, that was funny. Well, it was funnier a few years ago. Princess Elsa will never catch the coronavirus. You know why? She is the master of self-isolation. Okay, this is KF5JJ and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 17. One of the stars in Andromeda is Gamma Andromedae, Almag. David Hutchinson writes in the TASS newsletter that this star is a beautiful double star with a good color contrast, a yellowish primary and a greenish blue secondary star. Sort of reminds him of Alberio in Cygnus the Swan. Slide Master, slide number 18. M31 is the Andromeda Galaxy, one of the finest deep sky showpiece objects in the heavens. It is bright enough to be visible to the naked eye from dark sky locations, but even in light-polluted locations, you can see it in binoculars. M31 is best viewed at low powers. If you are trying to take in the whole galaxy at once, up here, binoculars is what you need. Higher powers can be used to be searching the details of the galaxy, and M31 spans over 3 degrees of the sky. So, in other words, about 6 moon diameters. Big enough that there's a lot of detail to be seen by looking at the details. Recent estimates put M31 to be about 2.65 million light years from the Earth, making it the furthest object visible to the naked eye by most people. Some sharp-eyed people might be able to see M33 and Triangulum, that's a galaxy, in clear, dark skies. It's just a bit further than M31. But most people, M31 is as far as they can see. That's a pretty far distance. Slide Master, slide number 19. the images that you're seeing of M31 and M32 and M110 that you'll be seeing were all taken by my C-STAR telescope over the last couple of weeks. So slide master, slide number 19, M32 is one of the companion galaxies to M31. It's an elliptical galaxy that appears spherical in shape. At low power, especially in smaller telescopes, it shows little detail at all, so it's almost indistinguishable from a star that's close by. In fact, there is a star of similar brightness that's very close to it, so you might have to look at a photograph of M31 and 32 to be able to tell which object is the star and which object is the galaxy M32. Slide master, slide number 20. M110 is another companion galaxy to M31. It appears further out from the nucleus of M31 than M32 does. M32 and M110 are analogous to the Magellanic clouds that the Milky Way has, which are companion galaxies to the Milky Way. But the Magellanic clouds are irregular galaxies. M32 and M110 are elliptical galaxies. Also, like the Milky Way, Andromeda has other smaller companion galaxies further out. M32 and M110 can be observed with smaller aperture telescopes from dark sky side. In the early 2000s, as an experiment, my friend Dennis Harwell pointed his 50 millimeter, in other words 2-inch refractor at M31 under dark sky conditions, using a long focal length eyepiece, which provided only a magnification of about 11 or 12 power. He could see all three galaxies, M31, M32, and M110, using just this 2 inches telescope eyepiece. The telescope with 2 inches in aperture, and the eyepiece was just a very long focal length one. Slide master, slide number 21, please. G1, it's a sort of a challenging object. It's a globular star cluster in M31, in the Andromeda star galaxy. It orbits around M31 at a distance of about 100,000 light years from the galaxy's nucleus. It's estimated to have about 300,000 stars. If we could remove the object from M31 and place it next to Omega Centaur in the sky, it would be brighter than Omega Centaur. And remember, Omega Centaur is the brightest globular star cluster that we can see from here on the Earth. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 22. There are a few more Astronomical League, actually a lot of Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Andromeda, the Princess. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 96 different observing programs. Most of them have about 100 objects. Now, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year from the Astronomical League. Slide master, slide number 23, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Andromeda, the Princess. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use and borrow and steal from them for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next week we'll take a look at two constellations, Aries the Ram and Triangulum the Triangle. This is KF5JJ Chaz saying goodnight and 73. Back to our net control. Billy, it's yours.
Great, thank you, Chaz. This is KF5PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is space launches for the week. So at this time, I'm going to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, and you have my permission to do both your segments back-to-back, space launches and visible satellite passages for this coming week. So at this time, I'm going to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
Well, thank you, Miss Billye, and this is KE5ICX. So we have tomorrow, November 23rd, Falcon 9 launch at Starlink 11-30. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg in California. Falcon 9 rocket launched 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit about 8.5 minutes after liftoff. First stage, tail B-1071, launching for the 30th, 30 times, will target a landing on a drone ship. Of course, I still love you, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. November 26th, another Falcon 9 launch, this time with Transporter 15. This will be also from SLC-4E at Vandenberg. This will be a dozen CubeSats, another small spacecraft of the smallest rideshare, part of its small-sat rideshare program called Transporter. The rocket will fly the payloads into a sun-synchronous orbit, with deployment beginning nearly 55 minutes after liftoff and concluding 2.75 hours later. The mission will use the Falcon 9 first stage booster, tail number B-1071, which will mark its 30th flight. 8.5 minutes after liftoff, it will land on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. On November 27th, the Soyuz 2LA will launch MS-28/74S from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The Soyuz 21A rocket from Roscosmos will launch the Soyuz MS-28 mission to the International Space Station for a roughly 8-month stay at the orbiting outpost. The mission is led by cosmonaut Sergei Kutsirkov. He's joined by flight engineer and fellow cosmonaut Sergei Mekhanev and NASA astronaut Christopher Williams. This will be the second space flight for Kutsirkov and the first for both McKay and Williams. On November 28th, November 28th, a Vega C launch of CompSat-7. This will be from Europe's spaceport at Kourou, French Guiana. An Air and Space Vega C rocket will launch the CompSat-7 Vega C rocket into sun-synchronous orbit. The 2,000-kilogram satellite will provide high-resolution imagery to the government of South Korea. It's also referred to as the VV-28. This will be the sixth flight of the Vega C rocket. Okay, last week I gave you a whole bunch of really favorable passes for both the International and Tiangong space stations. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of news for you this week. I've only got 4 passes, 2 for International Space Station, the other 2 for Tiangong. I'll go ahead and give those to you now. November 24th, we'll have a minus 1.0 magnitude. It'll be a duration of about 4 minutes overhead. Its maximum height will be at 22 degrees. It will start in the northwest at 6:25 p.m. and it will fall to the north-northeast at 6:29 p.m. On November 25th, the ISS will pass over with a minus 0.5 magnitude, about 3-minute duration. Will just scoot above the horizon at 14 degrees. Then it'll be at 5:34 p.m. out of the west-northwest, and it'll fall to 5:37 p.m. to the north-northwest. The Tiangong space station, currently in orbit, will have a pass of 1.5 magnitude on November 24th. It'll be about 2-minute duration. This one's only a max height of 11 degrees. At 5:46 p.m., it'll disappear at 5:48. And then finally, the worst of the worst, November 25th, is 2.0 magnitude, about a 1-minute duration at 6 degrees at 4:52 p.m. out of the south-southwest, reach its highest point at 4:53 p.m. south-southeast. That's it. That's all I got for you as far as the International and Tiangong space stations are concerned for this week. Maybe we'll have better hunting next time. Back to you, Miss Billye. This is KE5ICX.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. This is KF5PDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, looking over on the club website check-in sheets. There's no new check-ins there, but if there's anyone on voice that has not checked into this evening's net, I'll give you the chance. This If you'll give me your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. All right, not hearing any, so we'll move on to astronomical Q&A. If there's anyone that's part of the net that has a question, we'll give you some time to come with your call sign and your question, and we'll see if we have an answer for you. Anyone with astronomical questions, please come now with your call sign. Okay, hearing no questions, are there any check-in stations with any remarks or comments for this evening's net?
W5GUS.
W5GUS, Gus, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Billy. I wanted to comment the astronaut Collins. She was a mathematics major, I believe, at a college. So isn't that interesting? She also was a flight instructor at the Air Force Academy. And so got into space flight after that. The hard part about that backflip that she accomplished is a very difficult, very dangerous maneuver, because during that they lose sight of the space station. They try to see, watch whatever they're doing, have the space station in sight, but it would be no way to accomplish that maneuver without losing sight of the space station. So things could get very dangerous if she didn't do it just right. And she did it just right, came out exactly out of the blind spot, a minute later with a perfect position. So she was a heck of a pilot, and the first woman commander also. So just thought I'd make that extra comments. Back to you, Billy, W5GUS.
Great, thank you so much, Gus. It's always great to hear added information. Our astronauts are such interesting folks, and they all have such wonderful and unique accomplishments. So thank you for sharing that about Eileen Collins. Are there any last-minute check-ins? We'll take a last stab and see if there's anyone else that would like to check in. So final check-in round, last call. Come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Last call for check-in. Okay, not hearing any, so I'm going to move to close the net. Tonight we had 21 hams participating on the air, so thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to the w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5PDS, Billye, and I'll be closing the net at 22:26 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, at 10:30 is the Afterglow movie net. Tonight is Quatermass 2 from 1957. 73, everybody.
Normal state.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net.
All right, well, I think it's probably time to begin. It is now time for the Afterglow movie net, which occurs about 10:30 every Saturday night. We pick a movie, usually science fiction oriented, good or bad, usually bad, but sometimes good, and sometimes somewhere in between. We discuss the plot, the characterization, the technical aspects, the music, and anything else we can think of about the film. Everyone is welcome to this net, even if you haven't seen the film, because we're going to ask you the question, if you check in, that is this a film that you would like based on other people's reviews? And if it is, that's great. If it's not, that's okay too. And then we're going to ask you what your thoughts are, or if they're a favorite film of yours, so that you can feel a part of the conversation. So this will encourage you if you've never checked into a Skynet Afterglow movie net, or you haven't seen the movie. That's perfectly okay. We'd love to have you. So let's give you a brief description of tonight's film. It's called Quatermass 2. Yes, I thought it was Quatermass for years. It's Quatermass 2, retitled Enemy from Space for the United States and Canadian market. It's a 1957 black and white British science fiction horror film drama from Hammer Film Productions. It was originally released in the UK as Quatermass 2 and was produced by Anthony Hines, directed by Val Guest. It stars Brian Donnelly with several co-stars. Quatermass 2 is a sequel to the Hammer's earlier film, The Quatermass Experiment from 1955. Like its predecessor, it's based on a BBC television serial, Quatermass 2, written by Nigel O'Neill. Brian Donnelly reprises his role as the eponymous Professor Bernard Quatermass, making him the only actor to play the character twice on screen. The film's story concerns Quatermass' investigation of reports of hundreds of meteorites landing only in the Winterden Flats area of the UK. His inquiries lead him to a huge industrial complex, strikingly similar to his own plans for a moon colony. This top-secret facility is, in fact, the center of conspiracy involving the alien infiltration of the highest echelons of the British government. Quatermass and his allies must now do whatever is necessary to defeat the alien threat before it is too late. It says here, too, that although Quatermass 2 was financially successful, its box office performance was eclipsed by the massive success of another Hammer film, The Curse of Frankenstein, which was to be the first of their many gothic horror films, many of which show up on MeTV with Svengoolie, which is on during Skynet, and I've seen many of these films, with the sound turned down, of course. But it was from the massive success of another Hammer film, The Curse of Frankenstein, which was to be the first of their many gothic horror films. As a result, it would be 10 years before Hammer adapted the next Quatermass serial for the cinema called Quatermass in the Pit from 1967. That was the first one I saw, and it was a very popular movie on ABC Saturday Night at the Movies when that was a thing back in the 60s and early 70s. Quatermass 2 was, however, the first film for which Hammer pre-sold the distribution rights to the United States, a financial model that would quickly become the norm for subsequent Hammer productions. That also, by the way, is used to finance a lot of British productions, even to this day, is to work towards an American audience. And in fact, that Doctor Who continues to do that in order to supplement their own budgets for their BBC show. That's been on since, 63? So there you have it. That's all I'm going to give you. I can give you the plot, but it is long and convoluted, as you will find out when we talk about it. So let's go ahead and get started. The way we do this is I'll take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you did or did not. In the end, we just like to have you check in. If you did, we'll ask you a few questions about it. If you didn't, we'll ask you a few questions about it anyway. So here we go. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Quatermass 2?
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Yes, I saw the movie, but you wrote in you keep saying Quatermass. There's no R. It's Quater, Quatermass. I saw it.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony and Dallas. Yes, I saw the movie in both color and black and white.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot. This is Virginia in Fort Worth. I did see this movie, though. I wish we had seen Quatermass 1 first in V5F.
This is WV5OZL. Name's Brenda in Dallas. I did see this movie.
Okay, let me go ahead and acknowledge who all is here first. And I do see Bill out there. I'll get him in here in a sec. N5DB, Bill over in Irving. Yes, he saw the film. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yes, he saw the film. ND5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, she saw the film. WD5OZL, Brenda, Dallas. She also saw the film. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come out.
Tomato W5FC. Yes, I saw this wonderful movie.
Okay, I've got W5DLT, Bill. Yes, he saw the film. And I was going to say, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I remember. Double check your frequency. You may be off frequency just a little bit. I'm not entirely sure because I'm running through All-Star-Link and it's a little staticky for me here, but I think that has something to do with you. But you are much more staticky than anybody else, so I don't know. I could be all wet on that, but just double check it. Anyone else want to check in? All right, we'll have plenty of time for other folks to check in later. I suspect we will get a couple more, at least one more. So we'll start at the top. Bill, welcome back. We missed you for the last, gosh, I guess it's been about a month, but we're glad you're back. You saw the film. What do you think? N5DB from KP5, ICX, talking plot.
Okay, Tom, thank you. This is N5DB. Yeah, I was too tired, too busy, too sleepy. Just didn't have time to watch the movies. So that's why I wasn't here. Too much going on. Not enough time on my schedule. First, let me say it again. It's Quatermass 2. That's Quatermass. It has nothing to do with a coin. That's a 25-cent piece. Nothing at all to do with that. Just keep that out of your mind. I had never seen this. I had never seen any of the series or the British TV show or anything. So this is all new to me. However, it reeks of the similar British science fiction stories from the 50s and 60s, which had similar themes. This is Inside BB. Some of these same themes were in some U.S. movies, but the British had several of these themes. One of, in a big way, one of them was some British base that something weird was going on, and having to break into the base and figure out what happened. And I think we've seen this in some other Afterglow movies, but I definitely remember several science fiction movies where something weird was going on in some base, and somebody had to break in and figure out what was happening. So that's one thing. The other thing is the trope of the alien intelligence that somehow infects humans, making them do their bidding. And we've seen that in all kinds of movies. That's pretty old now. But that trope was, the major trope in this particular movie. And then you've got of course, the creatures attacking us from some other world. And they've got some spacecraft or asteroid or something in orbit around the Earth, and they're dropping something on the Earth. Remember War of the Worlds and other similar kinds of movies? They're dropping some kind of thing on the Earth to infect us. Could be Day of the Triffids. There's all kinds of different movies we've seen that have had this kind of thing. So these are all these same kind of tropes that are in this movie. This is Inside BB. The British also like to have these army people running around with jeeps, shooting off machine guns, and they've got security around a facility which, although it may seem to be strong, is really very weak. I mean, look, people got into this place pretty easy, and they ran all over the place, and the guards were shooting like crazy. They shot at his car, had to be at least 100 different individual, shells, and not a single one of them stopped him. So they didn't shoot his tires out or anything, and I tell you that those British, those soldiers over there must be very bad shots. This is Inside BB. So anyway, you can see what I think about some of those tropes. The British were big into this back in the 50s and 60s, and these kind of things, and they just threw them all in this. And then you have the trope of the creature that grows and grows. Is it the 50-foot man? Is it the 100-foot woman? No, it's the fungus or whatever it is that grows too big, fills up these huge big spheres. And that's another trope that's been out there. As well as the infection that gets on your skin, some kind of infection. It's either Dracula biting you, or it's something that gets on your skin and infects you. Anyway, so I'm just kind of going through all these, but there's lots of them. And other than all those tropes, there's not many new ideas in this movie. Of course, you also have the scientists building the rocket that they can't quite get finished. And, of course, in this case, the rocket, the scientists themselves admitted that the rocket was atomic and would probably blow up when it went out into space, which they proved it did, which I thought was kind of goofy. Why would anybody build something that would blow blow up when it got out in space. And 10 of those guys built something that was so good at hitting that asteroid or whatever it was with their rudimentary, and they'd never tested it before. So, I don't know, that was pretty unlikely. What else about the plot? Like normally, in these kind of movies, especially the British ones, the people in charge are complete fools, or they're bad. They're bad people. So that's why the security, the police guy, his boss, had been infected. So his boss was infected with the evil creature. We see that meme or theme through a lot of these trope in a lot of these movies. So I don't know. Lots and lots of these things we've seen over and over again, and after a while they're a little boring. The movie was reasonably well put together and everything, and the actors kind of went along with it, but nothing special here. That's my synopsis. N5BD.
Okay, thank you, Bill, and welcome back. I got some notes and a current version of this same story that's currently on Apple TV. I'll mention that a little bit later. Next up is Tony, NT5TM. Tony, welcome back. What do you have to say about our fine plot, the fine plot for Quatermass 2 from 1957?
Good evening, Tom. Yeah, sorry I've been away for a while, for reasons both good and bad and otherwise. I don't know. Yeah, I will be a little bit more brief, but say yes, the plot was extremely familiar. Maybe it was newer in 1957, but yeah, like the visit to the alien factory of doom is something we see in the Donald Sutherland Invasion of the Body Snatchers, a wonderful movie. The original miniseries, Soylent Green, it's just this recurring theme of the enemy is strong, but not too strong, so the protagonist can sneak in and see their nefarious plan at work. Is Mark being visible made it less scary than Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I really felt that the plot was just, I know that they said in Wikipedia, and you alluded to this earlier when, like in, I can't remember if it was TechNet or at some point, I think you alluded to the fact that this had been a TV series, and Wikipedia mentioned that, yes, they had tried to trim out a lot of the talking and philosophizing, but I really felt like they were trying not to let anything happen too fast. It seemed to retain traces of that original TV serial thing of, we have to not let anything important happen, because they only get to read one strip of this graphic novel every week for 77 weeks. Now, I have the greatest sympathy for the people who had to watch, like, the Tom Baker Doctor Who's in 18 parts or whatever it was they originally aired in. So, yeah, I felt it was just a little too stretched out and very familiar. Very familiar. But that said, they executed it reasonably well. There were no big screw-ups. There were certainly oversimplifications, like the rocket that works in the first try. But, not bad. Not great, little draggy, overly familiar, but it could have been so much worse. NT5TM, with more interesting comments, I hope, on rounds 2 and 3.
All right, thank you, Tony. And boy, maybe that explains the slow roll on this film. Okay, next up is Virginia, NV5F, who also mentioned what I just said, slow roll. So, I'm sure the movie picked up. I fell asleep, so I kind of missed a little bit of it myself. But Virginia didn't. I know she had to watch it to the bitter end. Are you bitter? Or were you happy when it ended? from KV5. I see it.
Well, I think I was bitter the first half of the movie, and then the second half I was completely disturbed, and then the end I was pretty happy because it was over. But this, let's see, the plot of this, yes, they were being very leisurely. It seemed like they were trying to build suspense, maybe, like just try to build tension, like what is this? It's a mystery. You know, domes. There was a model of some kind of a sort of thing that they were supposedly going to do on the moon, but I guess it was really more of a thing they were building for these aliens that were controlling them. I need to go back and see it again, because the first part, you know, I was just kind of getting lost, because it was kind of slow. They were talking about this asteroid that these aliens, they figured out that there was this asteroid that I guess was their ship, and I guess they were going to take over the Earth and eat everybody. That's usually what the aliens want to do. You know, they usually want to eat us or use us as, you know, vessels for their superior intellect. And maybe they're disembodied and they need our bodies, or they want to use us as sort of a means of helping them reproduce, because they're so intellectually awesome, but they somehow can't reproduce without some other, you know, something. I don't know. Anyway, it was your standard thing. It actually kind of did, in a way. I mean, the acting, you know, I know acting is around too, but, you know, the way they did it, they kind of, it did have this dry sort of procedural routineness about it. And then, you know, the Quatermass guy was, he was suspicious. There's always got to be that, you know, the hero is always the person who gets suspicious first, and, you know, and then he gradually kind of figures out, and then his friends start to figure out, and they start to investigate, and so, yeah, they built tension, but I mean, really, this thing was only like an hour and 24 minutes long, so it's not like it just dragged and dragged and dragged. It just, I think it just felt slow, because that's how things felt back then. They would have a slow setup, but they would build tension gradually, and then bam, it's over. There's no anticlimax. There's no really finishing the third act with any kind of resolutions or people feeling relieved. It's just, it's over. We figured it out. We devastated them before they could destroy humanity, and this was, I mean, it was really only about 12 years after World War II, and it definitely had a post-World War II vibe about it. I think these aliens were, you know, this may be getting into round 3 philosophizing, but it was pretty obvious that it was, you know, they were a euphemism for, you know, Nazism and fascism or communism. You know, they're taking over quietly, and they're infiltrating, and they're subverting, and then they're going to gradually just use humanity up or take over or do all of it at the same time. And you know, there could have been a little more clarity maybe about, you know, what they were after, but I don't know, it was supposed to be scary, and for the time it probably was real scary, and I thought that the first time I saw the alien that was in the dome or whatever, all I could think was, and even at the very end, all I could think was, this was the inspiration for all those chocolate volcano desserts that they serve now. It looked like a chocolate mountain covered with squishy, you know, crackly chocolate topping and hot fudge. And I'm sure in black and white it was way more scary, but in color it was portrayed as sort of a dark brown color. So it made me just want chocolate. Overall, you know, the plot was clear, and it didn't bore me to tears. There was some tension and some disturbing things that I kind of try to put myself in the era of when I'm watching something, and go, what would people back then have felt when they watched this? Would this really be bothering them? Would it be, making them feel kind of nervous, or would it be making a point to them that it might not to us because of the time that had just recently happened in history or whatever? So the Quatermass guy, he appeared to be American. That kind of put him at odds with maybe where he was. And, the culture, and he's kind of up against this much more stuffy, buttoned up, kind of way of doing things, and he probably felt like, bureaucracy to death, and he couldn't, it was sort of, the people around him were kind of part of the antagonist, element, and, I don't know, for back then, this probably seemed pretty original, because we can look at it now and go, oh, God, that's so trite or so tropey, but, in 1957, it was kind of a new spin on a fairly newish, genre, and, a newer concept, from science fiction and aliens and stuff, or just a new approach to a pretty really old concept. So, anyway, I didn't hate it. It kept me watching, and I did care about the people, and I'm glad they won at the end. And that whatever factory they used for all the ammonia and rockets and all that, that was interesting. I think it was I think at the end of the movie it said it was like a Shell oil factory, so I thought that was interesting, or refinery rather. So yeah, I thought that place was kind of interesting, and it was maybe the first time something like that had ever been used in a movie like this. So anyway, I thought it was okay. Back to net in V5F.
Very interesting. So it kind of pulled out of its nosedive a little bit. You felt a little better about the film, and okay. Well, I'm happy with that. I took additional notes so I can comment later. But interesting. Okay. Next up is Brenda. WB50ZL. Brenda, your thoughts on the plot for tonight's movie Quatermass Part 2 or 2. From K85, ITX.
This is WB50ZL. I watched it. I stayed awake. It wasn't too bad, but, it was so dated. Oh, well, I guess everything is. But a lot of it was predictable. It took me a long, long time to figure out what was going on, and I didn't like that. I'm going, get to the point, or make something happen, please. And it did get better toward the end, but I don't know. I think they just, some of the things they just kind of wore out over and over. It's like, please, we get it. Let's move on. To me, it just felt like the movie went on forever. So, that's my feeling. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Okay, well, that was short and sweet, but that's fine. Next up, Bill, W5BLT. Bill, your thoughts on our fine movie. What is this thing? Quatermass 2 from K85 ITX.
Hey, Tom. I was on an HT running through my living room, so now I'm back in the ham shack. So, as always, with the exception, I think, one movie that I didn't like from this era, the 1950s and 60s, I always give a movie like this a free pass. Why, I don't know. Probably because there's dialogue. Probably because you made me sit through the George Lucas film from last week, that THX, whatever, 138549. Hey, these people had hair in the movie, from what I understand from the AI
research I did. And I know that's, maybe something for later, but the plot, yeah, we've kind of seen it before. There's bad aliens. There's people that have been taken over by the aliens, and they're evil. And, it's kind of the same plot, too. Sometimes people, even if they're not taken over by aliens, can be evil and stuff. And you have to remember this was the Cold War era, and people were afraid. The other thing that I think is interesting, it would be interesting to know if the TV, how much TV had infiltrated the houses, homes and stuff back then. Because I think people looked for the movies as kind of a big deal, and it didn't really matter. Maybe if you'd seen the plot and stuff before, it was still fun to go to what they used to call a picture show, right? And a lot of people still were gathered around the radio and stuff. So maybe it didn't matter as much back then, but I typically love these British movies. I love the plot. My mom always told me when I was growing up, don't talk to strangers and don't pick up strange rocks. And, these people were picking up strange rocks and bad things were happening, getting sprayed in the face with pneumonia and coughing and everything like that. And then I thought I was learning where the McRib came from when they said it was a synthetic food factory. So that intrigued me a little bit. So for me, it was a fun movie. I realize, it's not the greatest plot in the world. We've seen it multiple times. But I don't know. I just never get tired of a plot like that. And I like the old kind of British sci-fi stuff. And I don't know why. Maybe I should have saved this for the second round, but I kept thinking the main character could be played by Abbott. And I wanted to see an Abbott and Costello remake of this. I don't know why. I just thought it'd be fun if they had ever been able to do a kind of spoof on this movie. Anyway, I like the plot. You have the evil aliens trying to take over, dropping stuff on the world, and these strange rocks you shouldn't pick up. And then they won, right? We won. Not the aliens, but we won. And so it's kind of a happier plot compared to that monstrosity you made me sit through last week. W5BLT, back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Bill. We always win alien invasion movies, when the alien invasion plots. The only one we didn't was Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and we lost. And that was because Donald Sutherland was in charge. You can't depend on that guy. And Leonard Nimoy, he was kind of half alien anyway, so what could we do with that? Okay, let's see here. Oh, we're at the bottom of the list, so I'll go ahead and ask around. Anyone else want to check in? Please, somebody call saying name. Did you see tonight's movie? Quatermass 2.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this movie.
That guy who always holds out on me, KB9SOK, Sean, you're up. You know the drill. What do you think about the plot from KB5 ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I don't know that I have a whole lot to add. Everybody's done an excellent job talking about the tropes. But as Virginia pointed out, this was 1950s, so was this a movie that created the tropes? So, I guess it wasn't probably too much of a trope back then, probably because it hadn't been done too many times. But yeah, it definitely covered the traditional taking over humans. Let's blow it up using a nuclear device, their ship, and magically everything dies after the ship is blown up. So maybe that's where Independence Day got its idea. Who knows? Maybe it's where the Body Snatchers got their idea. Who knows? Anyway, other than that, there was a few plot holes, other than just beyond the craziness. Why were they able to penetrate the factory so easy? Why were they such horrible shots? Which was already brought up. It's like, they were stormtroopers. As many bullets that were fired, there's no way they would have missed that badly. Had a problem with that. And then when they were trapped in the main control room, it's like, really, if it's an alien intelligence that found its way here to Earth, something tells me they'd be smart enough to figure out how to get in there, and they weren't. And then, it was already brought out, how did we possibly aim this rocket to hit their asteroid or ship or whatever it was? Once again, did they not see it coming at them? A slow-moving rocket in space? So there was some issues, but I think I kind of fall in between the group. I didn't mind this movie. I thought it was just okay. I can't say that I loved it. I can't say that I hated it. It was just okay for its time. It probably was pretty entertaining. But I guess just because we've seen so much like this, the first half of the movie for me was kind of boring. Just watching, our scientists run back and forth, and not really accomplishing anything. It definitely picked up the second half. All in all, I guess it was okay. I mean, I did manage to stay awake for the things. And, I do agree the aliens did kind of look a little bit like just chocolate volcano. But initially, at first, it reminded me of, like, giant versions of the Creeping Terror. The other goofy plot thing was, we've seen that, those guns seem to be pretty ineffective, but yet we had the guy that was at the extreme distance building shoot one of the domes, and it exploded. And, so I kind of doubt that little machine gun would have penetrated those steel domes, but anyway. This one was just kind of, one bad, one good, just kind of in the middle. Alrighty, back to net, KB9S, okay.
Alright, thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody, on that comment. I wrote a few notes. Let's see, the Stormtrooper aim. I don't know what's wrong with those people. I guess, working for a, quote, food, end quote, factory that looks like it's tar or something. I don't know what they were eating, except the stuff was floating around and alive, apparently. I guess it's like you've got a lobster tank, perhaps? I don't know. I was a little confused by the little, well, in your case, brown, whatever they were, that were floating around and inside that big dome thing. I don't know. That didn't make any sense to me either. I'm not sure. I guess that's what the domes were for. Now, what they were on the moon base, on the styrofoam domes on the moon base, well, okay. Why did they repeat the domes on the moon base? That's, I guess, a habitat, perhaps? Maybe that's why they were using it? I don't know. Didn't make any sense to me. If they got interstellar travel, if they're able to travel between worlds, what do they need with our broken down old technology? Maybe those are the materials available? I don't know. Very confusing to me. The one thing that I thought was really nice, though, and I have never seen in any movie, and I always complain about, and I've complained about here, it actually happened. We saw alien stuff or being moved through London, I think, and taken out to the countryside. That's one of the things I told you with Bond villains. They're able to keep their base very, very secret, even though it's got millions and millions of pounds of concrete and rebar and construction and I-beams and heavy equipment that they have to run through those little Swiss towns. The chalet towns, they got to get all this heavy stuff in so that when they build their base, either on the top of a mountain somewhere or under the ocean, they got to keep it secret, But in this case, they were driving this stuff right through town. A couple of pieces, nobody's bothering. The Bobby that's taking care of traffic, he didn't care, just pass it through. It's Joe in his secret lunar base he's building. No problem. I'm hush-hush about the whole thing. So there's that. And then all the little messages. Don't tell anybody about this. Big sign. Don't tell anybody that we have a secret base we're building. And yes, I think probably what the big excitement was that overall the film, while it had some stupid elements to it, like the whole, whatever those monster things were, the food or aliens or whatever it was. I fell asleep during the part that explained that, I guess. But whatever happened there, that they, we had that, and the rocks that, I don't know what the rocks were doing except making everybody sick, but the rocks were there trying to change the environment, I guess. I don't know. We had that, but overall the story, especially during that time, most of the science fiction that was coming out at that time was really directed towards kids. Kids would go to the matinees, and so we had lots of action and the old meteorite stuff and spaceships blasting off with people in them and danger every 15 seconds and all that. This was more of an adult story, slow roll, British type stuff. Long explanations, discovery things, and all of that. So the action doesn't show up until the second half of the film, and most kids by then have gone completely insane and eaten lots of sugared items and wouldn't be controllable in a theater. So obviously this was for a sophisticated or more sophisticated audience. They did their best to make that happen, which made it really kind of boring in the end, at least until the second half, and then I guess it picked up a little bit. Cold War, absolutely, there's that in all of this, and I think what they were trying to communicate is what could happen. Infiltration, X-Files stuff, yeah, we've seen that before. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, there's Invasion Earth was another one like that with the blue fins, I think. A number of films later on mimicked that quite regularly. There's a series on right now that's doing that called Invasion on Apple TV. They just went into their third season, the same thing. There, while you're trying to figure out what the alien's MO is over 3 seasons, I think they do a pretty good job of keeping things interesting there, although it is a very, very slow roll. But if you feel like wasting 10, 20, 30 hours of your life on this series and with about 15 minutes worth of action over those 30 hours, it's not a bad series to consider. But same game. Who's friend, who's foe, why, what are the motivations and all that. And after 3 seasons, you still don't know. At least for that series. Okay, well, let's move on. We'll go to the top of the list. Next round is the acting. Most of these characters, with the exception of the principal, were recast or new. I have my personal favorite to hate, Jimmy, but I'll tell you about that when it's my turn. So we'll start with Bill and 5TV. Tell us, what did you think about the cast and characters for our film Quatermass 2?
Well, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. You mean the usually drunk newspaper reporter that suddenly sobered up? He was either drunk and slurring his words and about ready to fall over, or he was sharp as a whip, and he was in one state or the other and not in between. Well, let's see. Of course, our hero, professor or scientist or whatever, Quatermass, was, where did they get that name from, by the way? Did they pick it because nobody else had that name? I'm just wondering where Quatermass came from. I'll have to do some searching and see if if there's some Latin root for quater, I don't know. Anyway, he was, of course, the hero that knew, well, he didn't know everything initially, but everything he told everybody was getting further and further toward the truth. And everybody that objected to what he suggested was a doofus. And he, of course, was the hero. So pretty simplistic. And he came off initially as Mr. Pushy, don't get in my way, because they're cutting our funds. They won't agree to building my moon base, so we're all going to be out of a job. And he was yelling at all his employees, who he apologized for it, but he was a pretty direct guy, and he was a guy of action. A man of action. He went and he actually grabbed a gun and shot the bad guards and jumped right in there and wasn't going to take no for an answer. So that was pretty straightforward, Mr. Hero. The detective, or the police guy that he kind of befriended, was kind of his sidekick for a while there, kind of helping him. Unfortunately, they didn't get his scientific compadres, the people there at his office. The woman who seemed to be just a secretary or whatever, they got the coffee. That was her chief job, I think. Handled the messages. And the other two guys, I was kind of surprised that he didn't get them involved with doing anything, although they did die at the end. One of them, the famous scenes, dying on the floor, you pull yourself up on the chair to push the button and pull the levers at the last moment to save the Earth. Haven't we seen this before? Whether it's a James Bond movie or a Mike Myers movie or any of these, where everything's getting ready to go bad, and some heroic character in their last dying breath, pushes the button or pulls the lever to make everything work good. This is Inside BB. The good guys were good, the bad guys were bad. The townspeople were confused, and I think they were shown as being. It's similar to the Frankenstein movie, the original Frankenstein movie. Remember, they all got riled up, and then they roared over to the castle and broke down the gates to come in. Same thing happened here. They got all riled up, and they broke through the gates and got in. But they were a bit confused. And just like the guy who insisted, even though Quatermaster said, don't do it, he insisting on using their grenade gun or whatever it was to blow up one of those spheres, which sure did blow up easily. I tell you, that was, if all military things would go so cool, one shot at that thing and that whole big sphere went up, which I found was kind of unconvincing. But, the townspeople there were pretty goofy. You remember the tavern lady that insisted on picking up the thing that Quatermaster said, don't touch it. And of course she died. But I don't know. It's just that that additional trope of your average, townspeople are total doofuses. None of them were smart. None of them knew what they were doing. They could be convinced in one thing or convinced in something else. And somebody yells something and they all run over after them and all that kind of stuff. And as somebody kind of mentioned earlier, this was kind of during the Cold War. And, of course, who was bad? The Russians and communism. And so a lot of these movies were a little bit similar to warning. They're going to be indoctrinated by communism. So it's just, and then they're going to be mindless zombies. It's just like the zombie movies or the ones where people get infected by spores or something. They're going to be infected by that communist ideology to go and do something goofy. Their minds will be out of their control. I guess that's it for the characterization. So I'll tell you one thing about characterizations. The bad guys, none of them could shoot a gun with beams. I mean, occasionally they hit something, but when it came to Quatermass's car, they could not stop him. And they were, in general, had the worst security setup at that base I've ever seen. Just total doofuses with regard to security. I mean, the guy leads them in, and Quatermaster just kind of is behind, and he kind of wanders away. And they didn't notice it until it's too late. They showed the bad guys to be doofuses as well as the townspeople. Anyway, that's all I got for characterization. Inside BB.
Communist zombies. Okay, Tony, NC5TM, same question to you. Cast and characterization, what do you think?
The characterization in this movie does cipher and give a lot to talk about. Certainly, the big bad, it's really hard to be afraid of a triple chocolate mousse cake from Olive Garden. I mean, everyone loves those. I have to buy her one every year on her birthday. And that's the villain, and it's pressurized with ammonia and methane, or methane, as the British say. No. You just pick it up from the restaurant over there in Tawny's Boulevard. It's not that dangerous. On the other hand, I actually kind of liked the characterization of the villagers. They had those wartime posters like loose slips, sink ships, except it's got that little V-shaped shield logo on it. They were very changeable and moody. I really did appreciate, though, that, as clearly all the older people were meant to have fought in World War II or the Great War. Don't straggle. They all know how to use weapons. I thought that was kind of a neat touch because so often in TV shows they depict like Americans as capable of picking up some random exotic alien weapon and knowing how it works, and that's completely ridiculous. But here, it's like, of course British people who fought in 2 wars know how to use the familiar British weapons. So as we moved more towards the middle, the big bad was ridiculous and looked kind of tasty, and the villagers I kind of liked, sad to say. Quatermass. Every time a British person said that, it just grated on my ears. I hated the way they said that character's name. He was, clearly a very thoughtful hero. He was a man of action, but, certainly not into running around with an alien machine gun and blowing things up. Lots of talk, lots of meetings. But every time they said his name, my teeth hurt. Finally, this is the one movie I've seen where the stormtrooper effect didn't bother me. I imagine that a hive mind, most of whose members are trapped in these pressurized spheres of ammonia and methane, and they've delegated this one tiny fragment of the hive mind to control this human zombie, and they don't know diddly about Earth weapons. They're probably going to be pretty bad at almost everything. So I actually didn't, for once, I didn't mind that the bad guys were slow to react to incredibly bad shots. I kind of imagined the British post-war characters being, they've all been in the Home Guard or been in the Army, and once their suspicions are aroused, they're very active and they're going to use their training. And here are these zombies, and they're lucky if they know which end of the rifle goes towards the enemy. So I actually enjoyed all the characters. Quatermass is such a silly name. I think Ian Fleming was right. When he met the famous ornithologist James Bond, it's like, you have the perfect name for a secret agent. I want the rights to your name. You can name a bird after me, I get to name one spy after you. Okay, perfect. Who names their hero that? Anyway, I mostly liked the characters. I thought they were fitting and appropriate. NT5TN.
Thank you, Tony. Next up, Virginia, NV5F. Cast and characterization. What do you think?
Thank you, Tom. I can't think of a whole lot else to say. The Quatermass guy. I mean, if we're going to mess with his name, let's just keep on going. He sounded American, so I'm assuming he was the British people that he dealt with, the intellectual kind of people. They were all British. There was one lady who had this. She had the dialect coach standard transatlantic accent going, so, and that was kind of a thing, and Quatermass guy kind of talked like that too, but not totally. He was more colloquially American. And then it seemed like everybody at the pub was either Scottish or Irish, because the common folk, they're always the people who have the thick accents, or, they're like British, but they're still more ethnic, I guess, anyway. I noticed that kind of stuff, but it doesn't bother me. I think I think the acting was fine. The characters were fine. Everybody seemed in character. There weren't any characters that I totally disbelieved, and I thought they were all okay. They did good at their jobs. They got a job doing this movie, and they did all right. Back to net in V5F.
Wow, the characters are getting and the actors are getting thumbs up. Well, let's see if this trend continues. Next up, Brenda, WG50ZL. Your thoughts, characterization, and cast.
This is WB50ZL. Well, I thought the aliens were terrific actors. They just nailed it. So far as their motivation and their destiny and everything, they were really good. The people were pretty much depictable. There were some really stupid people in this. Don't pick that up. Why? It's just, how can you be so stupid? And it was just an awful lot of talk, which kind of bored me, because they argued over stuff so much. But it was the 50s. There's a lot of that going on in the 50s. So, what can I say? Especially in science fiction. But, it is what it is. It was, predictably 50s. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Next, Bill, W5CLT. Same to you, casting characterization.
Well, hi
thanks. Well, I have to agree with Brenda. The aliens were great. They were pretty silent, so once got taken over. But one thing that I think is something maybe we forget is these guys came, some of them, maybe from, well, not all, I guess, but, you know, the old-time radio shows, there was a lot of dialogue, and some of those actors and actresses transitioned. But, you know, people, I think there was more dialogue back then, and it was, yes, you have special effects, but if you go back and watch those movies from the 30s and 40s, there's dialogue. And maybe that's why I like it. I told my wife and daughter that it's like, for me, it's not much different than listening to an old-time radio show, as opposed to watching films from that era. And now it's more about big explosions and things like that. And so I know that's probably third round, but I don't know how long I'm going to make it. I like the characters in this. The main character, Quatermass, or however you say his name, I don't know. They could have given a name like, you know, Bob or Jones or Smith, you know, Leslie, I don't know, something, you know, but they had to have a name that you can't pronounce. So yeah, you know, and of course, the main female character there was good. Everybody did well. As far as the townspeople go, I mean, think about how crowds are easily manipulated and things like that. For some reason, when we were all talking about this, it reminded me of I know the Frankenstein one comes to mind, but also in the Disney adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, when the townspeople go to, you know, kill the beast in the, you know, town when their lead lights was on, you know. You think about how many times people can be stirred up one way or another, for good or bad. And I think I like everybody's comments so far. Not much to add. Again, I know I give these things a free pass, but I think it is because it's so dialogue, and you could actually probably turn off the picture on the TV and tell what's happening. And so for me, that's, you know, not that I don't enjoy the modern movies, but it is a little easier to follow for me on the older ones. Thanks. W5FC.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Bill. Next, Sean, KB9SOK, cast and characterization.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot to add. Yeah, I thought the acting was sufficient. Everybody's conversation did remind me of the point I forgot to mention the first round. It was interesting that the townsfolk, of course, initially didn't believe the scientists, but then they did when they seen it for themselves. But then they didn't seem to listen to them again when they were trapped in that room trying to stop them. Once again, it's just kind of dumb. You know, it's like, yeah, okay, well, you're going to believe the expert or just, you know. Yeah, I guess you have to keep the plot going. But, yeah, I thought the acting was sufficient. Yeah, the aliens probably was the strongest. The second strongest was probably the drunk guy. Everybody else was, you know, the main character was fine, I guess. Other than the fact that he seemed to be pretty much angry through the whole film. I guess he was just having a really bad week. Yeah, not a lot to add there on this, other than, you know, I think everybody's already covered in particular. So anyway, back to that. KB9SOK.
right, thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I don't know if I got anything to add because I don't remember much about the characters. I know that sounds terrible, right? I should know, but I kind of fell asleep. Don't blame me. I was tired. I was very tired. But, you know, Quatermass, I guess, was okay. Brian Don was okay. I guess I understand he was a little bit of an imbiber and had a tendency to go on set a little on the not sober side. So they had cue cards for him, or idiot cards as they called them, that he could read his lines when necessary. Though other people say that was not true. Although they did say that he did have a tendency to drink while on set. So you got that. But the guy who played Charlie Chan did the same thing. And look at that. That was a character that everybody remembers, above and beyond Quatermass. And Charlie Chan's easy to say. So we got that. Let's see. Yes, I hated Jimmy. Jimmy, the reporter. He was either drunk or smart as a whip. But he was a character I wanted to see die, but never did, unfortunately. But, you know, maybe there's hope springs eternal. I don't know if he was in the third one, the pit and the Quatermass and the pit. Quatermass and the pit. But who knows? Maybe the character was there. That guy did star in a lot of his 19 movies that he was in playing a character. So apparently he did really well in that. I don't know how much they paid him, but apparently enough that he survived, and he did voiceovers or something after that. So we got that to consider as well. What else can I say? Not a lot, because I don't remember a lot about the characters. Let's see, Max, Carry the One. No, I don't remember anybody else. Okay, that's all I'm going to say on that one. So, color me stupid. Okay, last round we're going to do, we got 42 minutes, so let's go ahead and get started. Last round, music, special effects, something you missed on the first round or second round. Now's your opportunity to speak up or forever hold your peace on Quatermass. So we'll start with Bill. Bill, what do you have? You got anything on special effects, music, or something we didn't cover from KE5, ICX?
Okie dokie, Tom, this is Inside BB. I liked the big, huge rocket in the background. Way back there in the background. We didn't get a good up view of it. We didn't see inside of it. We didn't really see it take off, but it was kind of neat back there. So some artist created that, stuck it back in the background, and it was just there as a prop. I like that. What else? The alien oozing whatever it was bad. I mean, the concept was bad. The execution was pretty bad. I didn't believe that was alive. I don't know what it was, but it didn't look very alive to me. It looks like some oozing goo with a rough surface. What other special effects or other things? You know, they acted like that whole facility had only been built in, what was it, 3 or 4 years? But when they were driving around it, it was obvious it had been there quite a while. You know, I could see kind of some corrosion and the way that the concrete looked. It wasn't brand new, but big deal. Obviously, they found a facility they could film in, because nobody is going to create any special effects to simulate all of that stuff. And it's a little bit extreme. I mean, did they need that huge amount of plumbing just to get those chemicals in there? Not really. But that facility was, I guess, available to be filmed. The domes in the distance those domes, that was actually okay. They look kind of realistic, I guess, from big circular domes. So that was done in the way which, for 1957, was just fine, I think. In the control room, to make it simple, they had, the oxygen and the ammonia and the methane and the hydrogen with big old knobs and dials, and I guess that was okay. They were trying to make it simple so everybody understood what he was doing. We're cranking up the oxygen and we're turning everything else off. So, there is no real... Oh, and also the other special effect, M5BB. They had their radars or whatever looking at the radio telescopes. They weren't very clear, but I guess they were kind of radars that were looking at those devices that were raining down. And for 1957, I think that was done just fine. I mean, they couldn't have done it any better to make it look any more realistic or anything. The antenna on top was a little hokey looking, but it looked like it could have been a radar dish moving around. All in all, I was okay with the special effects. Of course, one additional special effect was those big British cars, especially the big fancy cars. I guess they were Rolls Royces where they took to get to the facility, and they picked them up in them. And man, those are really big monsters, weren't they? How would you like to park one of those in a parking spot? And that's all I got in 5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. Yeah, that was one of my comments last night. The big, huge cars, each one had their own zip code. Okay, next up, Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your final thoughts. Go ahead, from K85 ICX.
Thank you, Tom, for being here. And Bill, yeah, I agree with both of you about those cars. I was kind of thinking, like, I've never been in the Navy. How do you park a destroyer? I don't know. I wouldn't have wanted to be a driver on that set. That was really something. But I did really enjoy the use of the oil refinery. All that plumbing, all that craziness, I think it added to the nefariousness of the aliens. When I switched from the colorized version to the black and white version, I think they did a great job of exposure and filming in that oil refinery. It looked stark and alien and forbidding and empty and devoid of people. A normal factory would have people on the assembly line, but this giant refinery was empty except for the zombie guards. I really think that set added to the fear, kind of like an echo of Metropolis. Man, I feel embarrassed to say this because this wasn't that great of a movie, but yeah, I think that set was my favorite part of the movie. Not the chocolate monster, but just the stark oil refinery full of plumbing, lots of places to take cover, but places the zombies can kill you. Oh yeah, big cars I can't park. Oh, the community center. I actually really like the community center with a little pub in it. It looks just like the VFW post here on Garland Road where the White Rock Lake Club has brunch. Yep, that felt pretty familiar. So yeah, I actually thought the sets really contributed. I love the lighting and exposure in the oil refinery. All in all, not a great movie, but they really tried, and it's old, but they didn't fail. NT5TM.
Now there's something for you. If they'd done the DFW, the community center, and call it a DFW post, and it had really weird people at it, nobody was, and they were manned by aliens, nobody'd know. I don't know. They're kind of off. Anyway, Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, your final comment. Anything you want. You want to talk special effects? Fine. Music? Fine. Something we missed? Fine. Something we didn't miss that needs to be further pounced upon. Here's your opportunity. Last chance from KE5 ITIP.
Okay, well, first I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one who was craving chocolate by the end of this. And, well, let's see. I kind of wish I had watched the black and white version because I really do like good black and white cinematography, and there was a lot of visual interest here that like Tony mentioned, it would be interesting to just see how they did that. So I don't know that I'm likely to go back and watch this just because of that, but I'm kind of sorry I missed that. The digital colorization is terrible. It's real waffly. It just, the computer from frame to frame, things will change, and it tends to use this weird, like reddish orange fill light that I'm not sure what visual thing it was trained on to think that color of fill light can be used any time of day, but it always looks like the sun's going down somewhere. Let's see, what else? There was something else I was kind of wanting to say, and now I can't think what it was. But overall, I mean, the alien special effects were pretty cheesy. They might have looked better in black and white. I was thinking, speaking of eating and chocolate, and VFW brunch, I wish I could drive. I'd come over to Garland just to go to the VFW brunch thing. That sounds fun. Tony, I heard you talk about that before, and it sounds really good. Seems like a fun thing and good food for a good price. Let's see. Anything else? Music, I don't really remember the music, so I guess it did its job, but it was also unmemorable to me. I'm supposing it was pretty typical stuff from this time period, so no big deal there. And special effects, they had to do some little bit of visual effects with domes and rockets and stuff, and that was probably pretty standard for the time. But yeah, a whole lot to say. There was something that reminded me of 2001. Apparently, William Sylvester, when they started shooting that, he showed up on his first couple days of work a little bit sloshed, and I think Stanley Kubrick had to have a little chat with him about whether he wanted to keep his job, and apparently after that he showed up for work, ready to work, and did a good job after that. I mean, if you need a really boring space bureaucrat guy, he's your man. Anyway, that's the thing I was reminded of. Okay, back to net, NV5F.
Yeah, I had read the same thing. I think we've read most of the same books on 2001, and yeah, Stanley, that was, by the way, for others, William Sylvester played Haywood Floyd, the most boring character in a movie of boring characters, and he had some trouble getting his lines out, and he needed to get it done, and they actually had to work an extra day because of him, and Stanley was not happy. Stanley liked to bring production to a standstill, but he wanted to do it on his own terms and not on other people's terms, so there's that. Okay, next up is Brenda, WV50ZL. Brenda, your final comment from KE5 ITX.
This is WV50ZL. Well, the special effects were pretty cheesy, predictable for a 50s low-budget science fiction movie. Wasn't any worse than most of the other movies made during that era. I don't remember the music, so I guess it wasn't very, I guess it was forgettable. Well, I just don't remember too much else. I think we've pretty much beat this dead horse already. So I'm going to pack it in. This is WV5OZL.
Alright, no problem. We're almost towards the end. So, Bill, W5BLT. Bill, you're next. Whatever you want to talk about from KE5, I6.
You know, I remember the music from this, and I kind of liked it. And maybe that's why it didn't seem like it was dragging for me. The music, to me, was conveying action and suspense. And maybe visually that wasn't there. But the music sure made it sound like that for me. And again, maybe that's because of wasn't necessarily synthesized, or some of the movies we watch now, the music is just kind of I don't know, it's strange. But this seemed dramatic and suspenseful as far as the music goes, and so maybe it's made the movie to somebody who's blind more exciting than what it really was. It's kind of like when you listen to a radio announcer maybe call a sports race or something like that, and the guy's out by a lap, but they make it sound exciting as the rest of the field is a lap down. W5BLT, back to you, Net Control.
Okie dokie, thank you, Bill. Final comments from Sean, KB9, that's okay. Go right ahead.
Yeah, this is KB9, okay. Yeah, there, as I mentioned, the aliens, basically chocolate. Aliens are hard. We know that from many movies, especially back in the 50s. Typically most of the creatures were either, spiders blown up or cockroaches supersized or rats or whatever. So it's, I guess their method was, well, let's don't do anything too complicated. Let's just keep it simple. So yeah, that might have been the worst part with the alien. I agree with everybody about the factory. I think that was smart. The oil factory does kind of look, a little bit out of this world, high tech, especially for the time. I do think that was a smart move on their part. It really was a smart set choice. And the little miniature model of it, who knows, the refinery might have already had that made. So that might have been a cheap thing. The control room was, not the most believable for the rocket launch. Didn't really buy that. But but everything else was fine. Yeah, the painted rocket in the background was okay. Explosion was, So, yeah, just okay in the effects. I think the music was effective. It's nothing you'd want to download or keep listening to. But it was your traditional, the music matched the scene kind of thing that you see in that time frame. So it was okay for what it was. So that's about it. Yeah, this one was, the coloring was pretty bad. I usually particularly prefer to watch the colorized, but this was pretty rough to watch. The 1080p black and white might have been better, but I agree with the other person who said, I don't think I'm going to go back and watch it again. Would I recommend this one? Yeah, if you're really into the old British sci-fi, then yes. If you're, otherwise I'd say probably no. Anyway, looking forward to the next one. Enjoyed the conversation as always. Back to net. This is KB9SOK.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Sean. Let's see. Anything I have to say? Special effects. overall, not too bad. I didn't mind it. I thought the domes looked pretty good considering what they were trying to do. In the refinery, it was a real refinery. They were able to do all those shots because it was really handled by just a dozen people on a big, huge facility like that. The undeveloped roads were an actual community that was in the process of being built nearby, so there's that. So that made it somewhat convincing of sorts. They did mention that those weird space things that were being driven through London actually were set up for those scenes, and the scene inside of House of Commons also was a real scene that they were able to get in the Afterglow to the House of Commons, so they were able to actually get permission to film in those locations. So that probably helped it. Handheld photography was also mentioned. They give it sort of that documentary feel. So there was that too. I think they did make a reasonable effort on all parts on this film overall, and from what I understand, the first film was much better. So, you know, it was middle of the road and okay. And that's going to lead me to the next surprise. You asked if you wanted to, see the other one. There's the Quatermass experiment, which I'm going to make for next week's film. It is there. It's got David Warner in it. Yeah, that's David Warner, everybody. So I just thought I'd mention that. So it's got some A-list acting in it, actors or luminaries. We'll do that unless that doesn't work for anybody, or if you got something else you want to see. That'll be next week's movie. So I want to thank everybody who participated this evening. We did our 90 minutes. The usual suspects have returned in force, so we'll do this again next week. Same bad time, same bad station. If you get a chance, watch the new series if you have Apple TV. And you may want to see that the first episode might be available publicly, I don't know, but go look for it, called Pluribus. The many one thing that's on our money, Pluribus. It's about an alien, not really an invasion, but an intrusion by aliens that have transformed mankind into a hive mentality. It is done by the same guy who did Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So consider it offbeat. It's quite fascinating. I watched an episode tonight. They come out every Friday. I think it's one of the most unusual science fiction themed things I've seen in a very, very long time. And it is a character study on people and individuals and what we do and their freedom and our supposed freedom and what we think is good and bad and all of that. And it all comes out in a very funny and interesting way. Well done series, filmed down in New Mexico. I think it's New Mexico. I'm pretty sure it's New Mexico. Anyway, if you have it or can see it, it's very big over on Apple TV right now. I think it's their #1 streaming series. So they're up to episode number 5. Okay, with that, I'm going to say good night and good luck. Walter Winter used to, not Walter Winter, was it? Edgar R. Murrow used to say that. We'll see you all next week. And would like to know what the movies are ahead of time. Send an email to me, KD5ICXQ, Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com, and say you'd like to be put on the list, and I'll make sure you're on the list. I also have the Facebook page that I have restarted under a new name simply because I did. I'll post it. I have it now. Make sure that it's somewhere that can be found for others that want to refer to the movie set. So, good night, everyone. Have a good one. This is 85 ICX now clear.
Good morning. The time is 12 a.m.